Today, the Biden and Harris administration just came out with some new attempts at gun control, as well as they're creating a scenario that will directly try those Second Amendment sanctuary cities, counties, towns, and states. Want to know more? Sit by and watch this episode of Guns and Gadgets. Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, the premier source for Second Amendment news. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching. Before I jump into the Biden-Harris craziness, I made myself an iced coffee. It's brutal outside. I want some iced coffee, and I just wanted to remind folks that blackoutcoffee.com/GNG directly supports this channel, and our tumblers keep things icy cold for up to 8 hours, so check them out. Link is down below. Thank you for your support. So the Biden and Harris administration, I'll do it later. The Biden and Harris administration came out with some new gun control today, and I kind of alluded to it with a post I did yesterday because I kind of had the info, but they said don't go live with it yet. But here we are, came out today. Before I jump into this, I want to remind people that during this era, there were a lot of district attorneys across the country that were letting criminals out because didn't want them to get sick. So those criminals back on the street, often, not all the time, but often they committed more crime. And in some places like New York, it's a catch and release system. There's no more bail, so crime has skyrocketed. Well, they're using those numbers that they helped create against responsible gun owners. What do I mean? Well, here on the screen is today's announcement. It says President Biden believes that the surge in gun violence that has affected communities across the country over the last year and a half is unacceptable, and his administration is moving decisively to act with a whole-of-government approach as we enter the summer months when cities typically experience a spike in violence. Today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing a comprehensive strategy to combat gun violence and other violent crime. This strategy implements preventative measures that are proven to reduce violent crime and attacks the root cause, including by addressing the flow of firearms used to commit crimes. Guys, I'll tell you what stops violent crime: keeping violent criminals in jail. Don't go easy on them. Don't give them 75 bites at the apple. If you want to commit a violent crime, you're going to do the time. That has a direct correlation to reducing crime. I've seen it happen myself in different parts of the country. Get tough on violent criminals. And I'm not saying, somebody who steals this little paper pad it needs to be going away forever. If they do violent crime, they need to do the time. But I digress. We'll continue. It says, combined, the administration's comprehensive strategy will stem the flow of firearms used to commit violence, including by holding rogue firearm dealers accountable for violating federal laws, support local law enforcement with federal tools and resources to help address summer violent crime. This will be part of the scenario to test the Second Amendment sanctuaries. Invest in evidence-based community violence interventions, expanding summer programming, employment opportunities, and other services and supports for teenagers and young adults. I don't know, maybe stop paying people to stay home. That might help there. And help formerly incarcerated individuals successfully re-enter their communities. So it goes into how much crime is skyrocketing in certain parts of the country, and it's directly correlated to more criminals on the street and soft attempts at fighting crime in the mostly Democratic-run cities. It's just a fact. So we'll go into the first part of the flow of firearms used to commit violence. So Bobo and his crew are establishing a zero tolerance for rogue gun dealers that willfully violate the law. Now, I will say that I am in no way advocating for FFLs or anybody else to break the law, but what I will say is that, and I've read this, it's not taking into account, if somebody lies on their 4473, they're committing a felony. They could still get around that and still get a gun, like Hunter Biden, and this program would hold the FFL liable because they should have known that this person was lying on their 4473. And as a result, let me continue. Gun dealers across the country are regulated by federal law that is enforced by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Dealers that fail to comply with their obligations under the law create risk to all of us. Today, the Justice Department is announcing a new policy to underscore zero tolerance for willful violations of the law by federally licensed firearms dealers that put public safety at risk. Nope, we're not going to hold the Hunter Bidens accountable. We're going to go after those FFLs who should have known that this person was lying. Absent extraordinary circumstances that would need to be justified by the director, ATF will seek to revoke the licenses of dealers the first time that they violate federal law by willfully, 1, transferring a firearm to a prohibited person, aka Hunter Biden, 2, failing to run a required background check, 3, falsifying records such as a firearms transaction form, like the ATF did under running guns under Fast and Furious, 4, failing to respond to an ATF tracing request, or 5, refusing to permit ATF to conduct an inspection in violation of the law. Of course, the ATF will tell those folks who have had their license stripped how they can get rid of the rest of their inventory legally. Remember, you have options, not just the ATF's way. There are multiple options under the law that you should be aware of. Just saying, but we'll continue. They want to maximize the efficacy of ATF resources to crack down on rogue gun dealers violating our laws. Guys and gals, this is not causing any problems in the US. There might be one gun dealer, maybe 2, and they should be jammed up. But the problem is criminals. Criminals violate the law. They don't follow the law. You can make as many laws as you want. They'll continue to violate them because they don't care. I don't know why that needs to be said. The administration continues to call on Congress to increase funding for ATF to hire additional personnel necessary to violate your rights. To increase the number of inspections and enforcement actions taken against dealers in violation of federal law. And then it says the president's fiscal year 22 budget has asked for enough people to add staff to every field office. Better coordination with state and local officials with on-the-ground knowledge of which dealers are supplying firearms that show up at crime scenes. ATF has designated a specific point of contact in every field division for mayors, police chiefs, or other local leaders to report concerns about dealers' compliance with the law. Formalizing the use of data-driven prioritization of inspection resources. I'll sum this up for you. If they have a lot of guns sold by ex-FFL that end up used in crime, that would be data that would drive the ATF to inspect that FFL, especially, and it's magnified if they look at the time from when it was purchased to when the crime was committed. Again, the criminal is the problem. Now, this also is the first part where they're going to say, oh yeah, you're a Second Amendment sanctuary, right? What's the deal with this FFL stuff? Like, you going to give us this information? That's going to be the test. The first test here, there's a couple in this program. They also want to equip states that have their own gun dealer licensing systems with data from ATF inspections. 16 states license or regulate firearms dealers themselves, and their inspection systems can be force multipliers in protecting public safety. Starting next month, ATF will begin sharing inspection data with these states so that officials there can determine whether to take their own steps to shut down dealers that fail to live up to their obligation under state law. And here is a direct challenge to the Second Amendment sanctuaries, the Second Amendment Preservation Acts, and the laws that have been signed across the country. That's the next one here. Launching multi-jurisdictional firearms trafficking strike forces. The Biden-Harris administration recognizes that the federal government has a critical role to play in coordinating multi-jurisdictional enforcement efforts to stop the illegal flow of firearms across state lines, unless they're doing it themselves. See Fast and Furious. Yesterday, the Justice Department announced it will be launching 5 new law enforcement strike forces focused on addressing significant firearms trafficking corridors that have diverted guns to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, the California Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. These strike forces, which will launch within the next 30 days, will be led by designated U.S. attorneys who will coordinate not only with ATF, but with state and local law enforcement partners. There's another test to those sanctuaries in places where firearms originate and where they are used to commit crimes. Strike forces will share information and otherwise coordinate their efforts across districts where firearms trafficking schemes cross state or jurisdictional boundaries. As part of this effort, ATF is issuing the best practices guide for law enforcement agencies that will include specific questions that officers should ask unlawful firearm possessors to help identify sources of trafficked crime guns. The next part I want to talk to you about is stemming the proliferation of ghost guns and modified firearms. During the April address in the Rose Garden by the President and Attorney General, the Justice Department announced that it was beginning the rulemaking process to help stop the proliferation of dangerous firearms that are currently circumventing our gun laws. The Justice Department has since issued 2 proposed rules to follow through on this commitment. First, the Justice Department issued a proposed rule to help address the proliferation of ghost guns that are increasingly ending up at crime scenes and often cannot be traced by law enforcement due to the lack of serial numbers. Second, the Justice Department issued a proposed rule to make clear when a device marketed as a stabilizing brace effectively turns a pistol into a short-barreled rifle, subject to the requirements of the National Firearms Act. Modifying a pistol with an arm brace can make a firearm more stable and accurate while still being concealable. So I guess the ATF wants firearms to be less accurate and less stable. Of course they would, because then they would say they're extremely dangerous and they all should be banned. That will segue perfectly into an update on our numbers for the comments. Here you can see the definition of frame or receiver and identification of firearms. Currently sits at 73,764 comments received. Guys, we really need to pump those up. We really do. Factoring criteria for firearms with attached stabilizing braces, that now sits at 102,903. A little bit better, but still way behind where it should be. If there's 10 to 40 million of these on the market, there should be at least that, I mean, half of that should be comments. But yeah, make a comment. Get your friends to make a comment. And here's another attempt to break down those Second Amendment sanctuaries. Again, they're going to test local and state law enforcement. They're going to provide law enforcement the tools and resources needed to tackle gun violence. As part of the Justice Department's comprehensive strategy for reducing violent crime, the Justice Department is committed to supporting law enforcement in local communities in addressing gun violence in preparation for a possible increase in violence typically seen over the summer months. Where needed and appropriate, the Justice Department is providing the following law enforcement support. The FBI is making available cutting-edge analytical resources to support state and local law enforcement efforts to identify the most violent offenders and most dangerous criminal organizations in the communities. Guys and gals, the local and state police should be doing that already if they're good at their job. And the FBI will also deploy agents to assist with enforcement operations targeting these entities. Here you go, rubber meets the road. Will your county stand up to being a Second Amendment sanctuary? Will your local sheriff stand up to being a local sanctuary? We're going to see. The ATF will also embed themselves with local homicide units. Big freaking deal. The DEA is focused at its efforts to coordinate with state, local, and tribal law enforcement to disrupt activities. Again, a big friggin' deal. But these are multiple attempts at breaking down the Second Amendment sanctuaries because we're over 61% of the counties in America now are Second Amendment sanctuaries. And the U.S. Marshal Service will also coordinate with state and local authorities for fugitive sweeps throughout the country, focused on individuals subject to state or local warrants for homicide, aggravated assault with a firearm, aggravated robbery, robbery with a firearm, rape, or aggravated sexual assault. Now, I'll have a link in the description to this announcement. It's on the White House website right now. And if you want to continue to read, they go through how they're going to have these community-based, evidence-based partnerships, which, hey, maybe they have some value. Maybe, I don't think they will. It's just diverting where the money should go, I guess, if they're really concerned with putting criminals away. But yeah, it'll be down there for you to read. Let me know what you think down below. This is the first attempt at the Biden administration to test the, I guess, the testicular fortitude of those counties, cities, towns, and states that have said we're a Second Amendment sanctuary and there won't be any of that unconstitutional gun control here. Well, here's an attempt at Biden to throw money at them and see if they crack. This comes days after they went after Missouri and their Second Amendment Sanctuary Act. I have that video floating above as well. Let me know what you guys and gals think down below. I don't know if you can tell, I don't have my air conditioner on. It's hot, so I'm going to down the rest of this iced coffee. Check them out down below, blackoutcoffee.com/GNG. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you more than you know. Be safe, stay vigilant, carry a weapon. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.